we can all agree that double O gauge London Underground trains have got way too complicated and confusing. There's just so many. So today I'll be explaining all underground trains from the very beginning to the very end. Starting with the most rare and popular, not a great combination, Metro models. John Polly, the owner of Metro Models, started by making brass models of the 95 stock, Northern Line, and the 92 stock, Central Line. They came motorised with Tenshodo motor bogies, which you'll see pop up quite a bit later in this video. Tenshodo motors were relatively fast, but very temperamental, jumpy and liked catching fire at random times. Despite this, however, most of the trains I will talk about use these motors. Anyway, back to Metro Models. John Polly's only ever made around 100 singular carriages, which is why they are so very rare, only popping up once or twice a year on eBay if you're lucky. Another issue with Metro Models is that they are originally sold unpainted. This means that many Metro Models trains look different. So if you buy two driving cars from one place, chances are they'll look different, which will look a bit odd on your layout. He also made many different variations of the actual brass train before even painting, different shaped windows and stuff like that. Besides this though, Metro Models are a good company. Great company. Amazing. Outstanding. After ceasing making the brass models, John Polly started selling 3D printed variations of the same trains, which after some work can look good, but they have many layer lines from 3D printing, and because of this, the walls have to be much thicker than the 0.5mm walls on the brass models. Also, the bogies never really fitted well, and there was a lot more friction, and yeah, it was just a bit of a mess. John Polly did also make a layout on display called Abbey Road. I won't go into much detail at the moment because there's so many videos about it on YouTube, surprisingly. For a while, at the same time as the brass models, John Polly was also motorising EFE London Underground trains, which leads me right into the next company, EFE. Oh, by the way, John has since sold his company to Phoenix Precision Paints, who promised to start selling 3D printed models just like John did. However, they were meant to start in March 2024 and, well, it's August 25 now, and they haven't even started. They also sell the occasional finished painted and motorised tube stock, currently a 92 stock 500, and I have seen others in the past. EFE. EFE made static painted London Underground 1938, 59 and 62 stock underground trains, as well as the Island Line liveries, which now run on the Island Line, surprise, in the Isle of Wight. These liveries include this, which looks quite similar to just the normal 38 stock, this one, which I own, I actually don't own the other two, and this one, which looks quite odd. It looks like a complete toy, because it has those dinosaurs on the side, but this was actually celebrating because they found dinosaur bones on the railway, so they made a special livery. Only ever one train in real life. The Island Line trains were only ever sold as 2-car sets by EFE. However, back to the 38, 59, 62 stocks. To EFE's frustration, customers were only ever really buying driving cars, because to make 2-car sets, because training cars aren't really necessary. And a very small amount of training cars were actually sold. So EFE started selling them in 4-car sets as opposed to individual carriages, just to bump up the amount of trading cars sold. One personal experience I had with them, which was very frustrating, was that when I went to the London Transport Museum once, I saw them when they were first for sale, and they were literally 15 quid each, and I was going to get some, but I didn't have any money on me, so I was going to come back later. And then I came back half a year later, and they were all gone. Searched on eBay, and they were £50 each, and they were so much more expensive, which was really annoying. John Polly then jumped to the occasion and started motorising these EFE trains with Tenshodo motors, which I mentioned earlier, and upgrading the bogies because the original ones have way too much friction with the pickups. After a while, this picked up and customers started doing it themselves. I've done it to a few of my models. It's quite complicated because you have to get a Dremel or something similar, cut out a huge square, sparks flying everywhere, fit the Tenshodo motor, cut up all the original bogies so you can have the clip and the shoe beams and stuff, and it's just really complicated, and most people don't want to do it because it's so complicated. But anyway, it did start picking up and a lot of people were doing it. Bachmann. In 2018, Bachmann started selling immensely popular S-Stock 4-car sets. These were motorised out the box instead of having to be upgraded, which made them a great choice for customers, and they also ran great. Also, being made by a huge company, they were much more common, and you can always see loads on eBay. When first produced, the recommended retail price was only around £200, which is a decent price for such a great train. 7 years later, the average price is £600 to £700, sometimes even breaking £1,000, which is just insane. In 2022, Bachmann then made 2 more London Underground releases. Firstly, just a reboot of the S-Stock with a printed maquette on the seats, as well as some other minor upgrades. The second release of that year was a very exciting one. Remember those EFE trains from earlier? Well, Bachmann had bought out the entirety of EFE, and they were remaking the shells, but putting them on their own chassis. And because Bachmann's a real company, they actually sold them motorised, which meant they didn't have to be motorised by customers, so they were way more reliable. One issue I've had with mine is that the coaches are very light and jumpy, unless your track is perfectly smooth and clean. 1 year later, they also made 3 more similar releases with just other liveries like 59 and 62 stocks. They were around £300. The only other differences were the raised seats to make room for the cordless motor and a huge 21-pin decoder in the middle of the seats, which was quite annoying because it was blocking the windows and making it look a bit unrealistic. Apart from those 3 companies, Metro Models, EFE and Bachmann, there aren't really any other significant companies that made London Tube stock. They are very undermade, and I really want more companies to sell them because, I love them. It's about my whole channel. A few other companies to mention, though, are Radley Models. Radley Models was quite similar to Metro Models. They started out selling white metal trains, even using the same bogies as Metro Models. They also were sold unpainted, unmotorised, and as kits, which made them a bit less popular to the public. Their main metal trains were a standard stock and many different variants of the Q stock. After this, they then sold 3D printed models with a very wide range of tube lines. You will also see the occasional Radley model train on eBay. They've normally been painted by now because they're so old. A bit more common than Metro models, like 5 times a year maybe. Unfortunately though, about a year ago, Phil Radley, the owner of Radley Models, sadly passed away, meaning Radley Models no longer sells any. I never managed to get my hands on a first-hand one. I was planning on, but then they stopped. Anyway, Murray's Models. Murray's Models, mainly, are another company selling unpainted 3D printed shells for the modern tube lines. You'll find a few other of those on eBay, a bit insignificant though. However, they are the only company I've mentioned in this video who are actually still actively selling models. Yay! They also sell some fully painted, motorised and assembled models like the 83 stock Jubilee line and the 67 stock Victoria line, with more in the future. Sometimes, Murray's Models also even sell motorised EFE trains, but instead of Metro Models, they have purpose-built chassis for smooth running and motorised. They are still quite new and only started in 2023. Back to the EFE, the chassis are 3D printed, so no surprise short-circuiting, bit lighter, which is good, less strain on the Tenshodo motor, and also you don't have to cut a hole in it because it's 3D printed with the hole already in. Some other mentions, quite small companies, are Harrow Models. They're quite similar, they sell white metal kits, similar to Radley Models but much smaller. I've had one of their models in the past, wasn't great, I never really got around to making it, and it was very thin and I kept accidentally bending the metal. Also, for some reason the shell itself is in 5 pieces. So it's also Pirate Models, which is pretty much the exact same as Harrow Models. People are also often selling the occasional homemade underground trains that can be anywhere between Bachmann standard and whatever this is. Well, that's just about it for today's video. Thanks for watching it. If I missed anything, please do let me know in the comments, and I might make another video with the things I missed. If you watched this far, claim that title by commenting winner in the description so I know who you are. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next time.